Hello everyone and welcome to Mountain Lake Journal. I'm Tom Halleck. This week, the midterm elections. Coming up, we'll sit down with former Congressman Bill Owens to talk about the races and how the nation's political landscape has changed.
We did it!
But first, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik wins re-election to a third term in the U.S. House of Representatives.
Thank you so much.
Stefanik won all 12 counties in the 21st District over challengers Tedra Cobb and Lynn Kahn, and celebrated her victory with supporters in Glens Falls.
Wow, we did it again. I can't thank you enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of our young supporters, to all of our veterans, to all of the hardworking families across this district. Our campaign has always been about you. And this was a hard-fought campaign. And I want to thank both of my opponents, Dr. Lynn Kahn and Tedra Cobb. I had the opportunity to speak with both of them tonight. It takes a lot of courage to run for office in today's political climate, and they deserve a round of applause for having the courage to raise their hand and stepping into the arena. And the truth is, tough campaigns make you a better candidate and a better representative. So thank you to both of them, and thank you to their supporters. Please know, for those of you who I didn't earn your vote today, I will work just as hard for you as I do for those who voted for me, because my job is to represent everyone in this district.
However, she's going back to a Congress where her party now finds itself the minority.
The good news is I have a very effective working relationship across the aisle. I have worked in divided government before. I've worked with President Obama to get things done when he was president. And of course, I'll continue working with President Trump. But I look forward to working with my colleagues in Congress. I have a record of delivering bipartisan solutions.
We built a community that cares about the district. We are of here, for here.
Tedra Cobb, who ended up winning more than 40% of the vote, told her supporters in Canton that she'll run again in 2020. Cobb came the closest anyone has to beating Stefanik in an election. Statewide, Andrew Cuomo easily won re-election, as did U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. And in the North Country, Betty Little won a 9th term in the New York State Senate.
And I really appreciate it. We've had a good campaign.
Although after several years, the balance of power in the state Senate swings to the Democrats, leaving Little and her fellow Republicans in the minority.
So it's disappointing, but we have to work with it and do everything we can to continue to get some good results.
And former Congressman Bill Owens joins us now for a little post-election analysis. Welcome. It's good to see you.
Hey, great to be back.
The midterms are over. Democrats did flip the House, as the minority party often will do after a presidential election, after 2 years. The Republicans won some key races in the Senate and some seats, so they have a wider margin there now. You've been through this. You were there for 2010, and you've been through elections like this. What do you see now for the next couple of years?
Well, I think that the setup, if you will, is clearly now divided government, which we didn't have before. I think that what that probably means is not much substantively gets done. Obviously, my concern is that we get involved in doing lots of investigations, that we walk down the path of impeachment. And I think that those things are not a good strategy for Democrats.
Why not?
Well, if what we do is go through this process of impeachment that cannot go anywhere in the Senate, absent some major change in the facts that we know today, I think that just frustrates people. It spends a lot of money, wastes a lot of time, and what people are going to hear on the news is this sort of droning on about impeachment, but no ability to complete it. Just very frustrating. I think the question of investigations, I think there is a large, reasonable area to be doing oversight work and doing investigations of the administration. You have the situation that went on in the EPA, now what's going on in Interior with Zinke, just a lot of people who are opening the door to be investigated. Never a smart thing to do.
So, cabinet members, what about the president's finances?
That's a really interesting question. I think that will be a huge constitutional fight if they subpoena his finances. I think that's going to be a real issue. Unless, again, Mueller comes out with some very specific, damning information, which I'm not sure is there, to be honest. But unless he does, I think that's going to be a difficult fight that will tie up many resources, and again, may or may not be the right way to go. I understand why people will want to do that, but if I were the Democrats, I would be putting forth a whole lot of common sense proposals on immigration, on infrastructure, on reducing drug prices like the president has proposed to do. In other words, putting it to the Republicans and the president to say, you want to do rational things that help the great swath of American society, we're here to play ball.
The race for your old seat, NY21, Elise Stefanik won a third term. This was the smallest margin she has won by. Do you think that President Trump and what's happening in Washington played a big role in this race here in New York 21?
Absolutely. I think that there was a lot of conversation about health care. I think a lot of people in this district were concerned about the pre-existing condition question, just like they were throughout the United States. And I think it did play a significant role in reducing that margin of victory.
Tedra Cobb says she already plans to run again in 2020. Politics in this country gotten to the point where every election cycle almost is running
into the next one?
Into the next one.
Yeah, I think it clearly is dribbling in, bleeding in, whatever word you want to use. I think we're now into a continuous election cycle. Now, having said that, I think the only people who are engaged in that continuing process are the politicians and maybe 20% on each side of the aisle. I think 60% of the people don't start paying attention until August of election year.
Because so many candidates now jump in so early. We saw with this last cycle, the first Democrat announced within a couple of weeks after the inauguration. And then we just saw the number grow. Is that good to have that many candidates running, or is it just too much for too long? I mean, that was a 22-month election campaign.
From my perspective, I think it's too long and too many. I think that people should do a better job of vetting the potential candidates, and the candidates should do a better job of vetting themselves so as not to create, because I think you get some fatigue, even against the most, or even for the most ardent of people. I think it becomes a very long and fatiguing process.
New York had more of a blue wave than many other parts of the country because the Democrats knocked off a few Republicans in the House, but then also, after a number of years, the Democrats have won back a solid majority now in the state Senate.
And that's right. And largely, I think that has to do with Governor Cuomo. For a long time, I believe he supported the breakaway folks in the state Senate. And now, if he's going to give thought to a run, he needs to be a solid Democrat. So I think that impacted the process that he went through in supporting those people to take control of the state Senate.
So what would you see coming out of Albany, some of the first things they'll do with control of both the Senate and the Assembly?
I think there'll be you may well see a bill. I understand that the Democratic majority in the Assembly has already crafted a single-payer bill. I think that's going to make Mr. Cuomo very nervous. It should, in my view, because that's again going to be a very divisive, difficult conversation. I think you may see some more gun control legislation come out. I think you will probably see an attempt to make sure that there is no infringement on the right to choose.
Recreational marijuana?
I would be surprised if Cuomo did that in a period that he's seeking potential national office. I think that's going to be a real conundrum for him. As you can see what's going on in Canada, which in some respects is kind of amusing. They're running out of supply. I think if they're smart, they'll kind of let this Canadian experiment play out for a couple of years, see how it works, and then see how you can maybe make that better if that's the direction people want to go.
With the loss of the Senate control, the Republicans losing control of the Senate, the North Country has a number of Republicans who have held their seats for a number of years, Betty Little and Joe Griffo and Patty Ritchie.
Yep.
What could that potentially mean for the North Country losing that clout?
Oh, I think it could be significant. I think the lack of a Republican majority in the Senate may well not be good for upstate New York. They no longer have the ability to make a deal with Cuomo because he doesn't need their votes. So that's not necessarily, from our perspective, a good thing.
One of the biggest concerns might be the prisons.
One of the big concern will be the prison. I think how dollars are dispersed, the member items that come out of New York State, we may see less of that because it'll go, the bulk of the dollars will go to the majority.